So millions of people in the U.S. get fluoridated water,
Yeah.
and it's been a major factor in reducing cavities for decades.
Yeah.
But, there's always been debate about it.
Yeah, like with anything, there are always two sides to every story. So
Right.
what's the big takeaway from this JAMA pediatrics study?
Well, so this study suggests there might be a link between kids who are exposed to higher levels of fluoride and having lower IQ scores.
Okay.
But here's the catch. Most of the studies they analyzed were from places like China and India,
Hmm.
where fluoride levels are much higher than what is recommended in the U.S.
Oh, wow. So we're not even talking about the same levels of fluoride that most Americans would even be exposed to.
Exactly. That's a really important point.
Okay.
When the researchers looked at studies with fluoride levels that were closer to the U.S. standard,
Hmm.
the link to lower IQ disappeared.
Interesting. Okay, so this new study might not be as alarming as some headlines make it sound.
Right.
But, it did get published in a pretty well-respected journal.
Yeah.
So what are the experts saying about it?
Well, there has been some pushback. Critics point out that IQ is influenced by so many things besides fluoride, like your socioeconomic background.
Right, genetics. It's really hard to isolate just one factor.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And how did this study even measure fluoride exposure? It doesn't sound like it was as simple as just testing the water.
Yeah, you're right. They looked at different things across all the studies. They looked at the concentration of fluoride in drinking water. They looked at urine samples.
Wow.
They even looked at environmental factors like pollution.
Okay.
So this makes it even harder to compare results across all these different studies.
Gotcha. Okay, so this study raises some interesting questions, but it's definitely not the final word on fluoride. I'm starting to see why this is such a complex issue.
Yeah.
What about the other side of this debate? What are the benefits of having fluoride in our water?
Well, the main benefit is that fluoride helps prevent cavities by making tooth enamel stronger.
Yeah.
And not just for kids, this benefit lasts throughout our lives. I remember learning about that in school. Brushing with fluoride toothpaste, that helps protect our teeth, but having it in the water just seems like it would give everyone like this extra layer of protection,
Right.
especially for people who maybe don't have access to regular dental care.
That's a key point. Community water fluoridation is seen as a cost-effective way to improve dental health for everyone, regardless of their income or access to dentists.
Mm.
It's considered one of the biggest public health successes of the 20th century.
Wow. So we've got this new study that's raising concerns.
Yeah.
But then we also have decades of evidence showing that fluoride's good for our teeth.
Right.
How do we make sense of all of this? I feel like I'm being pulled in two different directions.
Well, that's where things get tricky.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that science is always evolving.
Right.
One study doesn't change everything we know.
Right.
It's all about weighing the evidence and understanding the limitations of each study.
I'm starting to realize that this isn't a simple yes or no question about fluoride.
You're absolutely right. It's about understanding the nuances,
Okay.
considering the different perspectives, and ultimately deciding what level of risk we're comfortable with as individuals and as a society.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like we've only just scratched the surface here. I'm already thinking about like all the different factors that go into a decision like this for individuals and even whole communities.
Yeah, it's not just about one study
Right.
or one chemical. It's about understanding, the complexities of public health,
Yeah.
weighing those potential risks and benefits, and then ultimately making choices that align with our values.
You mentioned that community water fluoridation is considered a huge success.
Yeah.
How did that even come about in the first place? It's not like people just woke up one day and decided to add fluoride to the water.
No,
right?
you're right. There's a whole history there.
Mhm.
Back in the early 20th century, scientists noticed that people in some communities had fewer cavities than others. And they eventually figured out that it was due to higher levels of naturally occurring fluoride in the water.
Oh, so it wasn't some big government conspiracy or anything like that.
Right.
It started with actual observations and scientific research.
Exactly. And then they started experimenting with adding fluoride to the water
Mm.
in controlled amounts, and they saw a really dramatic decrease in cavities, especially in kids.
That makes sense. But even if something works, it doesn't mean everyone's going to be on board. It sounds like the fluoride debate has been going on for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There have always been concerns about potential side effects,
Right.
even at low levels.
Yeah.
And some people just don't like the idea of adding anything to their water, even if it's, beneficial.
Yeah.
It brings up questions about personal choice.
Right.
versus community well-being.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a tricky issue to kind of navigate. So how do we make sense of all this, like, conflicting information? Like you said, the science is always changing.
Yeah.
And it can feel overwhelming trying to keep up.
Yeah, that's where those critical thinking skills come in handy.
Okay.
It's not just about reading headlines or accepting whatever we hear at face value.
Yeah.
It's about asking questions,
Yeah.
considering the source of information, and being open to different perspectives.
What resources are out there to help them, like, learn more and form their own opinions?
Well, the CDC website is a good starting point.
Okay.
They have a ton of information on water fluoridation, including, the science behind it, the history of the practice, and the current recommendations.
I'm guessing they probably also address some of the concerns that people have about fluoride too, right?
Yeah, they do. They try to present a balanced perspective
Okay.
and acknowledge that there are different viewpoints on this issue. You can also find information from reputable organizations like the American Dental Association and the World Health Organization.
We always say knowledge is power, but it's what we do with that knowledge that really matters.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of fluoride. Until next time, stay curious.
Tuning in today, for listening.